Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. If you're investing in cryptocurrencies right now, don't be that person refreshing your portfolio app every 2 minutes. I know it's been a wild week this week, but put your phone down and enjoy some value bombs that are about to be dropped by a great guest from the fintech startup community. Because on today's show, I want to find out more about a fintech startup that wants to coin the term usage-based billing. The CEO of Cheddar strongly believes that usage-based billing capabilities are key to many SaaS models now, because essentially consumers increasingly expect to only pay for what they use. So I want to find out more about the challenges he sees regarding payment platforms in software development and also the vision he has for this cloud billing sector. Cheddar finished 2017 on a high after winning the Rising Star of the Year and Hughes Business Innovation Awards in Bloomington, Indiana, but their biggest moment is yet to come. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Indiana so we can speak with Mike Trotzke about Cheddar and that term usage-based billing. So a massive welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Mike Trotzke. Thanks for having me on. I am currently the CEO of a company called Cheddar, and we help other companies bill for their software. I live in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a little college town in the middle of the country. I've had several startups, so I guess I'm somewhat of a serial entrepreneur. Started in political media consulting in the late 90s. Did a lot of early online donations for political campaigns, and then started an online rent payment company that we sold back in 2007. And then more recently worked on a company called Sproutbox that invests in web and mobile applications. We built about 28 different companies while at Sproutbox. And then just, over the last few years, I've gotten more and more involved in Cheddar. And then about 9 months ago, came on full-time as CEO, and we raised a round of financing, and we're excited to take and grow that company on a go-forward basis here.
Now, Cheddar is a fintech startup that coined the term usage-based billing. But for anyone hearing about Cheddar for the very first time, listening to us now, can you bring the listeners up to speed with exactly what it is and what makes it different from other solutions out there?
Yeah, so usage-based billing is one of the ways that I explain it that I think it makes it easiest for someone to understand is I talk about it in terms of water and buying water, right? You can go to the store and you can get a water bottle. You get a one-time bottle, just a bottle. Or you can have what I think a lot of the SaaS software economy has been driven over the last decade. You can have a subscription model, which is, the guy brings you the big giant jugs to the office, right? It's a fixed amount of something for a fixed dollar amount at a fixed quantity. And what because we haven't had any technology to allow any other style of billing, that's been the most popular style of billing. So imagine that's the way you got water delivered at your house. It would be a bit crazy. What we're doing is we're focused on trying to make it as easy as turning on a faucet. So in order to get water, right? So the same, to draw that analogy to software, rather than you having to pay a fixed amount for fixed services, we are really, really focused on being the metering technology that sits outside of most people's houses for their water, but inside of software to allow us to track what people are doing and then bill for it dynamically. So most systems that are for billing are driven around a cycle where it's like, oh, well, it's time for Neil to be billed. Let's bill Neil $40 on Tuesday. The way Cheddar works is we accept usage data in real time throughout the entire billing period. So it's instead of bill Neil $40 on Tuesday, it's Neil just added a user. Neil just uploaded a document. We track all the activity they're doing. So we meter that activity first, and then we bill for it later. And that's fundamentally how our system works differently than most billing systems out there.
I suppose I've got to ask as well, Cheddar, where did that name come from?
Yeah, so the company was actually originally called Cheddar Getter. And it came from, that was the name, sort of started out as a library. And then as within Sproutbox. So Sproutbox built a new web-based or mobile startup every 3 months. And we did that for 6 years, built 28 different companies. And what we found really quickly is that we were spending as much time building monetization into our product as we were building the platforms that we were trying to build themselves. So we kept building the same customer communications, reporting, all of these payment-related tools over and over again. And so we started by just sort of building a library that we would leverage. And then as companies left and went out and went out on their own, we turned that into an API. And then, eventually now it's a full-blown company. But during that time, it was there's a reference often, particularly in rap music, to cheddar as money. And so that library was called our cheddar getter. It was the thing that went out there and got that cheddar and brought it into our companies. And that's really where the name originally came from. And then more recently, we dropped together and just became just Cheddar.
And it's not a cheesy name either, is it? Sorry, I had to go there. Easy gags. Now, most new solutions are the result of creators trying to remove a pain point. So can you tell me more about the challenges that you've seen along the way and also see on the horizon regarding payment platforms in software development right now?
Yeah, I mean, I was just telling you about the struggle that we had at Sproutbox, where software developers are just spending an immense amount of time basically building the same billing system over and over again. Sitting in pricing meetings, discussing overages, and we really wanted to come up with a way to minimize the amount of time it would take for a company to monetize their software. We're big believers in monetization. We believe in revenue as a metric, as something that isn't the only thing that matters, but something that you can use to figure out if you're providing value to folks. And it frankly just takes too much time and effort to monetize products. The cool thing about with Cheddar is, from a developer standpoint, I'm a recovering developer myself. I only need to do a handful of things. Tell me the 10 or 15 things that we'd like to track on the platform. I do that, and basically I'm done with billing, as opposed to spending hours and hours and hours discussing exact plans for billing, how we're going to handle overage. Cheddar kind of takes care of all that and allows the chief product officer, the chief revenue officer, the chief executive officer to make changes to pricing on the fly, allowing a startup to adapt. Lots of people, they spend a very small amount of time, just a few hours determining their pricing, spend all this time on their product, and they don't iterate on their pricing at all. And we really want to be able to give tools to people to allow them to quickly iterate on their pricing and solve some of that pricing pain that almost every company has, right from the get-go, by building on a platform that allows you to do that, like Cheddar.
Do you think that usage-based billing capabilities are key to many SaaS models now? And equally, are consumers increasingly expected only to pay for what they use?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what's driving our business, and one of the reasons that I got excited to be involved in Cheddar is consumers are expecting that sort of behavior. I mean, not just in recurring services, but everywhere. I mean, if you think about what happens when you get in an Uber, right? You get in an Uber, that some system there meters how far you went, how long you were in the car, what your start and end destination, and figures out how much to charge you, and you just get out of the car. And consumers are starting to expect that kind of convenience and ease of use in everything they do. I mentioned the water faucet before. Consumers are looking for that sort of stuff. Now, that model doesn't fit everywhere, right? There are some things where a fixed subscription makes sense, and Cheddar tries to do a really good job on those scenarios as well. But the thing that you need to have is the flexibility to price your product based on how a consumer wants to pay for it, whether that be a mixture of subscription, usage-based, one-time fees, whatever those things are. You just need to make sure that you're building, in a way that has that kind of flexibility to rapidly adapt to what a consumer is looking for. And there's no question consumers are looking for lower touch points on payments, easier, lower friction on payments. They're looking for easy ways to track what they're doing and just sort of set it and forget it and walk away. And, I think usage-based billing is definitely on the rise as a result.
So here we are in 2018 with a new year of opportunities. I mean, what's your vision for the future of iCloud billing sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see more and more consumption-driven billing, right? Yeah. We're going to see more and more companies making sort of the shift The early internet age was e-commerce, right? It's all driven around one time. I think the last decade has been pretty driven by subscription models in some ways, not to the complete detriment of one-time revenue, but that's been a class, particularly among SaaS companies. I think what you're going to see over the next decade, now that we're starting to have tools like Cheddar that can do a better job of metering activity, and we have more devices like what's happening with IoT to track activity. As that starts to happen, I think that's the next stage here. Is we're going to start to see a lot more focus on consumption-driven billing. And obviously, the whole cloud billing market is going to have to move in that direction.
Can you offer any use cases or real-world uses just to help listeners visualize how usage-based billing will work in their industry or their workplace?
Yeah, I mean, so it starts with things like that have to be metered because they have some cost with them, like, say, text messages. Yeah. One of our customers is a company called Textmarks. They actually track within our platform how many individual text messages are being sent out through their platform. So they allow other companies to send text messages through them, and they track that through Cheddar. They also track a bunch of things, and that's one of the things that's interesting about the way Cheddar works is we track things that you don't necessarily bill for. So almost all billing systems, it would be really odd for you to put data into them that you don't actually charge for. But for example, we might track every time a support request is submitted by Textmarks. So we might track how many group codes or how many users, even though they have an unlimited user plan, we're tracking all that information to give ultimate flexibility and ability to easily change that pricing without releasing new code. So anybody who has something where they have a high volume of activity, like 3,500 text messages a month is in their package, right? Well, we're tracking that for all their users and then handling overage. Where maybe you charge X cents per message after that. That's a really good market for us. We have a wide variety of different kinds of customers. I mean, another one of our customers is a company called USTV Now that is a television subscription for expat military. And obviously, a subscription model in television also has a lot of usage-based components where maybe you purchase a movie in addition to your subscription. You have much more granular control over each of your subscription options, channel by channel, things like that we can power and give consumers the flexibility that they're looking for in services like that. So we work for B2B, B2C. It's a little bit tricky because it is so applicable to lots of different types of businesses. Sometimes it's a little hard to wrap your head around how you could use the platform, but we try to make it as simple as possible by saying, hey, what things do you want to track that you might bill for, and then bill for them afterwards, and try and make our APIs very, very easy to consume.
Now, I read a great quote from you recently where you said, I've identified a problem is way more productive than I've got an idea. And I think I know what you're getting at with that, but can you just explain what you meant by it?
Well, the number one way, so having done investment stuff before we started with Cheddar and seeing a number of companies succeed and fail, the thing that I see most often that causes a company to fail is that a founder really falls in love with their solution. So they have an idea and they're like, man, this is the greatest thing ever. And then they put it out there and it doesn't quite take off as well as they would hope because their solution didn't exactly solve the problem that the market had. But because they were obsessed and fell in love with that solution and that idea that they had, instead of saying, hey, I've identified a serious problem that exists for people out here. Maybe my solution wasn't the exact fit, but I'm going to continue working, and my success or failure is based on whether or not I solve the problem. And if your mindset going into starting a company is like, I want to solve this problem, you won't quit until you've solved the problem. If your mindset is centered around how great your idea is, you're probably going to be the first of the sets of founders to fail and for your company to end up not making it. So, to me, it's all about finding people who are really, really focused on solving a problem. And those are the people that you find are most dedicated to their company and probably the companies that are most likely to be successful.
I really think you hit the nail on the head with that quote, because I've interviewed around 400 startups on this podcast, and I always ask, what was the catalyst? What was the inspiration behind your startup? And I would say that 95% of them all answer, I came across this problem, so I created a solution for it. And that's the secret, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll find that is the mindset of every successful founder, really. Yeah. And I find so many founders who don't have that mindset, who are just who want to be a startup founder for all the wrong reasons. They want to be a startup founder because they think somehow that it's a way to wealth, when really deciding to start a company is saying, I'm not going to get paid anymore. They think that it's almost like a social status element to them, and those folks just tend to disappear, because as soon as it gets tough, they're not interested. But when you're really motivated, like for me, I'm super interested in helping companies grow in the Midwest here, and that's a big motivator for me. And that drives everything. I recognize that if we can monetize a little bit faster, if the companies we're working on can get there quicker and have more flexibility with regard to that, that's a competitive advantage that will help. That'll help us grow. And so we're kind of on a mission to monetize the Midwest. Not that we only work for Midwest companies, but that definitely drives me. And I love helping startups. I've always loved helping startups with pricing. And so when you have that kind of mission, problem solving oriented approach, you just fight through the tough times when others won't, right? And that's what it's been for me to be an entrepreneur, is to, even when I find success, I end up digging myself a new hole to climb out of.
Absolutely. We'd have it no other way,
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's next for Cheddar? Is there anything else that you can share with us today about your plans for this year and beyond?
Yeah, well, we're just growing. I mean, so we finally have raised some more institutional capital. We did a seed round at the end of last year. And so we're hiring. We just hired our new director of growth, started last week, and we sent an offer out this morning for another support position. So we're definitely going as quickly as we can to sort of, bring this tool that we've used and has really, really helped a lot of the Sproutbox companies get off the ground. It's sort of our competitive advantage when we were churning out a new company every 3 months, right? And we're really hoping to help other companies leverage our tool to be successful themselves. And so that's the phase we're in right now, is just finally starting to get the product we've been using out into other people's hands and to really fully bring it to market, which is a really exciting project to work on.
So before I let you go, what's the best way for listeners to stay up to date on your progress at Cheddar, or maybe even contact a member of your team if they've got any questions after listening to our conversation today? Yeah,
so obviously Twitter's great, right? We're do a ton of stuff on there, and we're actually getting ready to do a lot more. So we're just at get_Cheddar. And then you can also just reach out to me on Twitter. I'm just at Trotsky, at TROTZKE.com. I'm monitoring that constantly. Glad to chat and connect with folks there.
Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes, just so people can get hold of you nice and easy. But you may be a recovering developer, but I know you're going to have an amazing future at Cheddar, because I love how you've adjusted to that, the way consumers are increasingly expecting to only pay for what they use, and changing with that demand and evolving with it. So I wish you the best for the future, and a big thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I think we've all heard the phrase fintech, but the next time you hear usage-based billing and the championing of only paying for what you actually use, remember where you heard it first. I love the ethos of Cheddar and agree with them that firms are shifting from that one-time perpetual sales or fixed monthly subscriptions to consumption models that blend one-time subscription and usage-based billing together. I think we can all agree that we need personalised and flexible services now. This is our expectation in our personal lives, and it's also starting to spill over and transform the world of business too. So a big thank you to Mike for coming on today and reminding me that I need to add Indianapolis to my bucket list. It sounds an incredibly exciting place to be at the moment, and I'm starting to hear more and more about that thriving MarTech scene. So I wish Mike all the best. Now, as always, keep your messages coming in to techblogwriter@outlook.com and tweets to @Neil C. Hughes. And remember, all the episodes can be found over at techblogwriter.co.uk/podcasts, where you'll also find pictures of the guests and links to where you can find out more about them. And you can even leave me a virtual voicemail. Now, a young gentleman listened to the Quizlet episode, the EdTech episode recently, and left me a voicemail. He was asking what my Facebook page is, but he signed himself off as anonymous, so I can't give you a shout out, I'm afraid. So really sorry about that. But I can tell you, and anyone listening, if you go over to Facebook and look for Tech Blog Writer, you'll find me nice and easy. But that's it for this episode, I'm afraid, so I will be back tomorrow, and a big thank you for listening. Now, Arnie might say, hasta la vista, baby, but I prefer to say, until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.